So remember when JD Vance freaked out because he found out that Mythos existed and it could basically break the world order? So he called up the whole tech billionaires group chat. He was like, we need to all work together on this. And then the White House said that it was planning an executive order after the National Economic Council director compared AI to drugs that needed FDA approval. It's an ironic comparison given that RFK Jr. has attacked the credibility of FDA approvals, but that's for another time. Today, we found out that the White House put that executive order in the trash can, and we also got a leaked version of the order's entire text. So we're going to be talking about both of those things today. That executive order was supposed to be signed yesterday, but an 11th hour call from some billionaires made Trump say, pens down. CEOs were invited, the ceremony was ready, the pen ink was tested. This is how the AI executive order that the vice president spent months building got torpedoed because one VC had Trump's direct line. Here's what happened. The executive order leaked today. You can read the whole thing. It had two sections. The first was about cybersecurity. So the Treasury Department would create a clearinghouse with AI companies to find and fix security vulnerabilities in unreleased models. It also called for hiring more engineers at the US Tech Force, which is the team that modernizes government computer systems. I just know that the government uses Outlook, and some of their systems have been around since Thomas Jefferson. The second section, the one that killed it, was about covered frontier models. It would have created a voluntary program where AI companies could give the government access to their most powerful models up to 90 days before public release. The government would check for cybersecurity risks, and then the model would go to trusted partners in critical infrastructure like banks, hospitals, utilities, so that they can prepare their defenses. Like I said, voluntary, not mandatory. That sentence was put in place to calm Silicon Valley, their lawyers and their CEOs both. However, Silicon Valley read that sentence and panicked anyway. Some companies, notably, were fine with it. OpenAI's chief lobbyist, Chris Lehane, said that they supported collaborating with the government on AI safety. Others wanted changes like a 14-day review window for the government instead of 90, for the intelligence community to lead the review instead of civilian agencies. That's standard negotiation. And what wasn't so standard and what deviated from the norm was how David Sachs, the former White House AI/crypto czar, who still informally advises the president, how he stepped in. So Sachs had been briefed on the order earlier in the week. He participated in the review process. He raised no objections during the formal process. And then on Thursday morning, hours before the signing ceremony, he called Trump directly and went around everyone else in the White House. He waited until the executive order was at the altar to say, I object. A White House official told Politico that Sachs had called unbeknownst to anybody and derailed it. That is how fragile the system is. That's how executive orders work. One powerful guy with a phone making a decision at the whims of some other powerful guys who call him up. Checks and balances are just now things they have at banks. So Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk also reportedly called Trump to push back. So if you're wondering how many billionaires it takes to screw over an executive order, that's 3. One who owns XAI, one who runs Meta, and one who's a VC with hundreds of AI investments. They phoned the president and convinced him to spike the one piece of oversight that his own vice president had been building since April. I imagine on the phone call, Sachs really played his trump cards, pushed the right buttons, saying stuff like, this is Biden-style regulation. People who want to keep you down are going to use this order to make it mandatory. China isn't going to put some politically correct pansy-style review in place. We're going to fall behind. Your hands are going to look small. And Sachs isn't wrong that voluntary frameworks can become mandatory ones. The people who wanted the order also aren't wrong that Mythos can hack into a hospital and that maybe needs some oversight. But neither side trusts the other one enough to find the middle. So Trump came out Thursday morning with a pretty convoluted statement. He said, I didn't like certain aspects of it. I think it gets in the way of, we're leading China. It was interesting rhetoric. The fight inside the White House is now pretty public. Vance clearly spent weeks assembling this after Mythos scared him. The entire Mythos response was building towards this executive order, and Sachs killed it with a phone call the morning of the ceremony, essentially. Sachs has hundreds of investments in AI companies through his venture fund. He is required to recuse himself from matters that affect his holdings as part of his now rather informal role as an advisor. He served formerly as a special employee to the government, which is a role that lets you keep all of your private interests while you work for the government for 130 days. So the man who killed the AI executive order has a financial interest in there being no AI regulation, which is, I would say, the oldest kind of conflict of interest in the book. So poor JD spent months building an executive order after Mythos scared him, but then the president got scared that he was going to look small next to China, a country whose government reviews and has ultimate power over literally every industry. So I would have loved to have dialed into that conversation, is all I'm trying to say. Here's what happens next. The executive order probably comes back. The leaked text was dated May XX 2026. It was still in progress. That's how much they are working down to the wire on executive orders when they're about to get signed, by the way. It was still being edited when it leaked, and the agencies, the definitions, all of this is now sitting in a drawer. Multiple sources say it will likely come back out and maybe get signed the next time a model does something scary. Mythos is just the first trigger here, but this is very much not the last version of the Mythos scare. In fact, it might even be like the most tame version. So the only question now is whether the incident happens before or after SpaceX, OpenAI, Anthropic all go public, because once they're public companies, they have to file quarterly reports, disclose risks, and answer to shareholders. And everything that they've been able to hide, like they tried to hide Mythos for a while, as private companies, all of that becomes visible. So the AI executive order is dead for now, but the technology is lurking out there in the swamps of DC and San Francisco. It'll have even scarier spawns to make future headlines. Sachs may not be able to sack that one as easily.